Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your daily vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. You can also follow the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur fan page and follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. All right. Hello, Emperor Rex, Sister Blackfoot, Winfield, That Crazy Beach Aries, Danielle, J. Parrish, Mr. Hotel, Pearly, Honey, 69. All right, let's get into it. Juju, LaVar, Assisi is in the house. All right, Kenyetta is here. Kenya, Chris, Ma'ata Hootie, all right, a.k.a. Dr. LaShawn Clark, dark-skinned brother, Tracy, Vina. All right, Hundia, I see you, beloved. Cassandra, warrior status. Let's get into it. Vix Tex, Anne Marie, Lot Wizard, Root Trackers. Okay. So hello, Nessie X. I see you, beloved. Shout out to everyone in the chat. I see you, Danielle, Donna, V Maltsby. Shout out to everyone in the chat and everyone tuned into the Queen. Esmont, I see you. Okay, so listen. Say what now? Didn't we just say this morning? Someone in the chat said this morning, and I concurred, that they should have dropped all those illegal immigrants off at Kabami's house. Well, guess what? They did. Now, we cannot make this stuff up. We absolutely cannot make this stuff up. Hey, Judah Queen and Ray Williams. So listen to this. I absolutely cannot. So, Governor Ron DeSantis dropped some of them off and had them sent to Martha's Vineyard. But Texas Governor Gregory Abbott, well, he decided to let them pay Kabami a visit. So let's get into it. Texas sends 2 buses of immigrants to the vice president's residence in Washington. And so the Texas governor says his state intentionally sent 2 buses of illegal immigrants to Vice President Kabami Harris's residence in the nation's capital, resulted in a Thursday morning arrival that surprised volunteers who said they weren't prepared to receive them at that site. I bet they weren't. Honey. Now, the drop-off temporarily left dozens of illegal immigrants, some of them carrying belongings in trash bags, standing on sidewalks and grass. And this all happened Thursday morning right outside the gated U.S. Naval Observatory in Washington, while volunteers scrambled to make arrangements for them. Absolutely love it. Now, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, one of at least 3 Republican governors who've taken credit for busing or flying immigrants north this year to protest the Biden administration's immigration policies, said Thursday that his state sent the buses to Harris's residence. He says, VP Harris claims our border is secure and denies that there's any crisis. This is what he tweeted. We're sending immigrants to her backyard to call on the Biden administration to do its job and to secure that border. Now, since Abbott started sending buses of migrants to Washington back in April, those buses usually have stopped around Union Station, and volunteers were prepared to receive 2 buses on Thursday at the station, but not at Kabami's house. Pay attention. Now, but Thursday's buses stopped instead at the Naval Observatory, some 4 miles away. A SAMU, First Response, one of the groups that's helping immigrants in Washington, and that's SAMU, they were not provided with any heads up. And this is all according to the group's managing director, Tatiana Laborde. They say by the time our team got to the illegal immigrants, they were very lost. And this is what she told CNN on Thursday morning, saying they didn't understand where they were standing. And this is a very residential area. Now, Thursday's passengers included families and young men. About 70 to 80% of the illegals are from Venezuela, according to the volunteers. They say the illegal immigrants numbered more than 100, and their nations of origin also included Colombia, Cuba, Guyana, Nicaragua, and Panama. And this is what Abbott's office told them. Now, the immigrants eventually were moved to a local church as they figured out where to go next. Some are trying to some are trying to go to other places in the U.S., such as New York and Chicago, according to volunteers. Now, the volunteers also said late Thursday morning they were coordinating with other agencies to have them received elsewhere. And they said, we're expecting that about half of those in the bus today are going to be on their way later this afternoon. Honey, this is also hilarious. I absolutely cannot. But hold on. Now, the leader of a civil rights organization working with Hispanic Americans also blasted Governor Abbott for the busing on Thursday, saying they were just literally dumped like human garbage in front of the vice president's house. Honey, let me tell you something. They need to stop being so overly dramatic, okay, and stop trying to cape and cap for Kabami. Because if they were dropped in front of the vice president's house, how is that dropping them off like trash? They weren't left at a dumpster, nor were they left in the back alley or in some parking lot at a Walmart or Target somewhere. You see, they were left in a very nice residential area right there at Kabami's front door. So that was hardly dropping them off like trash, okay? They were dropping them off like people that she's supposed to be taking care of, because they did, last I checked, put her in charge of the borders. They were just dropping them off so she could actually do her job, which she hasn't done as of yet, as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, they go on to say that they literally dumped them in front of the vice president's house as they were human garbage. That's un-Christian, un-Texan, un-American, and something that should not be allowed. This is what Domingo Garcia, national president of the League of United Latin American Citizens, told reporters on Thursday while he stood right outside Harris's residence with the rest of the immigrants. Pay attention. Now, Garcia said the volunteer-based organization will be going to Eagle Pass and Del Rio to stop buses before they leave by putting people in front of the vehicles and advising these immigrants of their legal rights so they are not used as political pawns. You mean like the Democrats are trying to do? Because the only ones trying to use illegals as political pawns are the Democrats. Trying to make sure they secure that vote. Pay attention. Now, that campaign will likely start in the next week, he says. It wasn't immediately clear whether Harris was at the residence when the immigrants were dropped off, as she had a morning event scheduled at the White House, roughly a 2.5-mile drive away. Honey, she was probably in there hiding. She was probably in there hiding. Pay attention. Probably told the butler and the maid, tell him I ain't home. Don't open that door. Please sit down somewhere, Kabami. Okay, now here's a video of a news report of it. I'm going to share my screen so you all can see this. Everyone, please get the likes up. Please like and share. Thank you in advance.
This is something new. Buses filled with migrants from our southern border have just arrived outside Vice President Kamala Harris's residence at the Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C. Griff Jenkins is live on the scene to tell us more. Griff, is that Massachusetts Avenue that I'm looking at right there?
Yeah. Good morning, Steve, Ainsley, and Brian. This bus just arrived moments ago. I talked to some of the folks. Apparently, this bus has come from Del Rio, Texas. That's what a gentleman on the bus told me. And these, pardon me, ¿de dónde eres?
De Venezuela.
¿Venezuela? ¿Habla inglés?
No.
¿Sí, no? ¿No? La presidenta Harris dice que frontera cerrado. La frontera es cerrado or abierto?
Abierto.
Abierto. So what she's saying, Steve, I asked her, Vice President Harris says that the border is closed. She says it's open as we see these migrants coming across now. We're not sure how many there are. We do know that according to Texas Governor Abbott's office, there have been about 7,900. Pardon me, do you speak English? ¿Habla inglés?
No, amigo.
¿De dónde eres?
Venezuela.
Venezuela? Everybody from todos Venezuela?
Sí, venimos prácticamente de Venezuela, un país muy duro. En realidad, queríamos ya salir de allá, tenemos días viajando. Migración también nos ha jodido mucho en México, pero lo que queremos es triunfar, queremos evolucionar, queremos tener de todo, queremos...
Okay, thank you. Yeah, buena suerte. So I'm not going to be able to translate all of that, and I wouldn't even try because it wouldn't look good on live TV. But as you can see, they're coming across here, all of these migrants. It appears to be at least 20 or so at this point. We have 2 buses. So what I was saying was, we know from Governor Abbott's office, there have been about 7,900 migrants on over 190 buses coming to D.C., more than 2,200 on more than 40 buses to New York, and of course about 5 buses to Chicago with a little over 300 migrants. ¿De dónde eres?
Buenos días, ¿cómo está?
¿De dónde eres?
No, no entiendo, no inglés.
¿Habla inglés?
No.
Okay. Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Bien,
¿De dónde eres?
en Venezuela.
¿Venezuela? Me llamo Griff. ¿Cómo se llama?
Gaby.
All right. Buena suerte. As you can see, children coming across here. ¿Habla inglés? ¿Habla inglés? No. The majority of migrants that have been coming, and I can give you some of the most recent numbers, but in the last month, about 70% are single adults. But as you can see, these are not all single adults. A lot of families getting off of this bus right now as we try and figure out exactly how many. We can just pan over here for a second, Martin. You can see it's a large gathering now. We don't know where they're going to go.
Right.
They don't know where they're going to go because there's no one from the D.C. Office of Immigration meeting them. There are a few other reporters out here. That's all that are here trying to figure out exactly where they're going to go next.
Griff,
No.
I don't know if Griff. Hey, Griff, can you hear me? I think we have. Griff has momentarily lost contact with the mothership here.
Get you back now. Sorry about that, guys.
Griff, can you hear me?
I got you, Steve.
Okay. Griff, because you're not able to pick up a lot of details from those particular migrants, aside from a lot of them are from Venezuela, can you go into the front of that first of 2 buses and just ask the driver where they're from, and who asked them to pull up in front of Kamala Harris's house?
Yeah, let's go over here for a second, Martin. We'll see. And so we're just confirming with you, you're coming from Del Rio, Texas? All right.
I don't think they want to talk.
They're not able to talk to us, although we do have confirmation from the governor's office that the governor sent these buses here specifically to Vice President Harris's house, to the Naval Observatory here. But again, where these migrants are going to go right now is anybody's guess as we watch this unfold.
You know, Griff, you asked one of those migrants about, there's irony involved in what they have done by shipping these 2 buses to the Naval Observatory, which it looks like you're right on Massachusetts Avenue. The vice president's house is just up the hill beyond a fence, the direction you're looking right there. She's in charge. She's the so-called border czar. So she's saying it's secure. And if 2 buses full of people who just walked across into this country on their own, if she thinks that's secure, all she's got to do is look out the window to see, this is the consequence of their open border policy.
Well, that's exactly right, Steve. And Governor Abbott's office tells us that they have chosen to drop the migrants off here outside of Vice President Harris's Naval Observatory home, specifically because of her comments on Meet the Press on Sunday, telling Chuck Todd that the border was secure, and it's obviously not. We'll take you up here just a little bit and see. Eventually, you would think at least the Secret Service or someone from Vice President Harris's office will come out to meet them. But right now, we'll just leave you with this live look, guys.
There you go. 2 buses, a lot of migrants from Venezuela.
Subscribe to the
I absolutely cannot with them. Okay, please. I absolutely cannot. And then you saw he was sitting up there trying his darndest to speak Spanish. And then when that Venezuelan man said all that stuff, he couldn't translate it. He said he wasn't even going to try. AIS esconde. That means she's hiding. All right. And that's exactly what she was doing. Kabami was hiding, honey. Police. She lied and said the border was secure. Yeah. And so now what she can't do, what she can't do now is sit there and keep lying. Because if the border was secure, honey, kabammy, all those people wouldn't be sitting in front of your house. All right. That's what they wouldn't be doing. Anyway, I absolutely cannot with kabammy. I mean, that's a good way to call her out on her BS. All right. Maybe now this will teach her a lesson about lying and not doing her job and always hiding out and cackling when people ask her serious questions about that whole border crisis in the first place. All right. I absolutely love it. Shout out to Governor Greg Abbott. Because I know her face was real cracked when she peeked out that window, twixt those curtains, because she was in there. Trust and believe. She was in there probably having brunch. All right. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. So I told you all that we were going to talk about demonic possession and hold on, let me get this off the screen real quick. I told you all we're going to talk about demonic possession and mental illness. Okay. So let's get ready to get into it. Now, I'm going to pull up this PowerPoint and share my screen. Going to share my screen, and then we're going to look at some footage. Mama says she needs to be having brunch. Okay. Probably eating some of those bland collard greens she was bragging about, says Robin. My fan page said she better go get some guacamole. She better do something and quick. Oh, and by the way, my fan page, I saw you with your nefarious self talking about no tacos es nachos. I absolutely cannot. Miss Hotel said he's here for the ghetto antics. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. And I want to remind you, beloveds, tomorrow is trivia. All right. So you might want to be paying attention. That's all I'm saying. Because you already know where the question is going to come from. The broadcast. So let's go ahead and get it started. I have a PowerPoint that I have put together. Ray Love said breakfast burritos and collard greens. Honey, it sounds terrible. Especially if Kabami's cooking it. Pay attention. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to pull up my screen or share my screen so we can see this PowerPoint. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined. All right. Okay, make sure you all can see that on your screen. Okay, there we go. Mental illness versus demonic possession. Let's get into it. Symptoms of mental illness. Some of the symptoms may include, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving you medical advice. This is just according to my research from other scholars who are medical doctors, psychiatrists, and psychologists. Okay, so symptoms of mental illness include feeling sad or down, confused thinking, or reduced ability to concentrate, excessive fears or worries or extreme feelings of guilt, extreme mood changes of highs and lows, withdrawal from friends and activities, significant tiredness, low energy, or problems sleeping. Those are just a few of the symptoms. Symptoms of demonic possession. Now, those include an irrational, uncontrollable aversion to sacred things and places, like a church, a synagogue, the Bible. Examples of these include crosses, Bibles, churches, hymns, and prayer. The responses to these things are a mixture of intense hatred and abject fear. Now, the ability to speak languages completely unknown to the victim. This is another thing that might lead you to ascertain that someone is demonically possessed. Start speaking some ancient language that they've never studied before. And those languages are usually Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, and Latin. So they go on to say examples. Often these languages are considered dead languages, such as Latin. Okay, we've already gone through that. And also Greek is another one. Now, the mere uttering of a few phrases is not considered evidence of demonic possession, since someone could glean these from a textbook. What the exorcist looks for is a demonstrated fluency in the language that defies all natural explanation. Sometimes what the demon says through the victim will be a direct clue to how and why the demon gained access to the victim, or even to the demon's identity. Now, a knowledge of these things unknown to the victim, we're not talking about the educated guesses, but detailed and precise knowledge of things distant from the victim. Examples like knowledge of the secret activities or sins of a person unknown to them, knowledge of things occurring to a family member or friend in another place that later proved to have been accurate. Such, clairvoyance, in other words. Okay, there are just a few of the signs. These are just a few of the signs an exorcist looks for in the investigation of potential demonic possession. There's 3 stages of demonic possession, and I've told you all these before on the spiritual channel. There's infestation. This is like haunted house type stuff, like footsteps, voices, apparitions. You could hear scratchings in the wall, furniture or other objects moving around without human agency, odors with no discernible source. Rather than directly affecting people, the infestations affect only the property, objects, or even animals. Oppression is the second stage. Now, this is when activity steps up with physical attacks, sleep disturbances, including regular nightmares, frequent and severe illnesses, major depression or anxiety, severe financial or employment problems, and relationship troubles. You see, because demons, they cause chaos and pandemonium. They wreak havoc into your lives. And demons are malevolent entities, so they cannot reside in a peaceful environment. So wherever they are, there's always chaos, sadness, gloom, despair, anger, and those type of things. So while these things happen in the normal course of life, all of them occurring or happening at once or in rapid succession could be a sign of a demonic presence. So even though these are things that we may go through in general, if all of these things are happening on a daily basis and you're always having all of them occurring at the same time, honey, it may be a demon. Not that it necessarily has to be, but that can be a sign. Okay, now the third stage is possession. Contrary to popular belief, possession is not demons entering a person's body and taking over his or her soul. You see, a person's free will is never removed, only severely compromised. So in possession, a person is so physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually broken down by going through the 3 stages that the demonic spirits are able to seize occasional control over the person's actions. Now, Father Gabriel Amorth, he was in one of the stories that I did on my spiritual channel. He's a true life exorcist, and he actually was working with this family who had someone was possessed on the spiritual channel. So anyway, possession doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and it always requires an open door, such as playing with Ouija boards. And I've told you all this before on the spiritual channel as well. Attending or conducting seances, going to webinars where people invoke spirits, summon deities, have you chanting incantations and those things. Pay attention. Now, attending or conducting seances, even going on a ghost hunt with friends. No matter how innocent one's intentions, dark spirits can take advantage of such opportunities. Now, in his 1990 book, An Exorcist Tells His Story, Father Gabriel Amarth, chief exorcist of Rome, who passed away at September the 16th, and that was in, I believe, 2016 is when he died. He was at the age of 91. He identified the following stages of demonic activity. Well, here's what he said. Now, I just told you the 3 stages, but rather than 3 stages, he actually said there were 4 degrees. So he had an extra stage, and that was what he called obsession. Rather than the 3 stages, he spoke of the 4 degrees of demonic possession. He agreed with this assessment, but added one other factor. The 3rd stage for him was obsession. Now, as the name implies, at this stage, the afflicted person has a hard time functioning, being constantly preoccupied with thoughts of the demonic activity that's commandeering his or her life, and frequently with thoughts of suicide as well. Sleep becomes nearly impossible. With that all being said, Myself and some other scholars who study these things, we don't say it's 4 stages. We say it's 3 because, in my opinion, and some of theirs as well, the fact of the obsession, the way it's described as afflicting someone and making them have a hard time functioning, always thinking about the demon commandeering and taking over their life and having suicidal thoughts. All of that, to me, is in line with the oppression, okay, which is the 2nd stage. So oppression and obsession, they're really the same thing as far as this goes. That's just my opinion. Of course, he had his own opinion, and he was clearly had more expertise in this field than I do. Okay, but like I said, I agree with some of the other scholars about that. So let me continue. Now, most obvious signs of possession. Telltale signs of possession include superhuman strength, speaking in a language the victim doesn't know, inordinate aversion to holy objects, knowledge of events or facts the victim could not possibly know, and according to Diocese of San Juan exorcist Gary Thomas, whose story was made famous in the book and the movie, The Rite. There's also changes in facial features. Now, I saw a video one time before. It was years ago. I saw this woman whom they said that she had schizophrenia. They said that she had multiple personalities. But during the interview, and I tried to find that video so I could show it to you all, but I couldn't find it online. But I remember years ago seeing that when they were talking to her during the interview, one of her personalities, her other personalities manifested, and this personality was supposedly allergic to strawberries. So when the doctor put a strawberry in front of her or gave it to her, she broke out in hives. And then when another so-called personality manifested, her eyes changed from blue to brown right before your eyes. Now, I don't know about y'all, but that sounds like demons to me, not mental illness. Because I haven't seen someone's facial features and eye color and things like that change just from having mental illness. Now, I'm no doctor and I'm not giving you medical advice. That's just my opinion. Now, those who were possessed by demons in scripture showed certain symptoms, and they include the following. Cannot control themselves. A person is under the control of a demon, who is under the control of a demon, cannot control themselves. Now, the evil spirit is able to speak through their lips or can make them mute as it so desires. The scripture gives examples of demon-possessed people who were mute. And when the demon was cast out, the mute man spoke, and the multitudes marveled, saying, it was never so seen in Israel. That's Matthew 9:33. Now, then was brought unto him one possessed with a demon, blind and mute, and he healed him, insomuch that the mute man spoke and saw. And that's Matthew 12:22. Now, we also find demons speaking through people. Just then there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, what have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. That's Mark 1st chapter, 23rd through 24th verse. A new personality may manifest. The demon possession means that a new personality is introduced to that person. The victim becomes a different person. The Gadarene demoniac acted and spoke as one who was controlled by another personality. Now, suddenly they shouted, what have you to do with this, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time? That's Matthew 8:29. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance. The third one is a different voice. Sometimes those who are demon possessed speak with a different voice. On one occasion, when Jesus asked the man, or asked the name of the demon spoke through the man and said, and he asked him, what is your name? And he said unto him, my name is Legion, for we are many. That's Mark 5th chapter, 9th verse. The person may also have supernatural knowledge. Now, in one incident, the demon speaking through a man immediately recognized Jesus as the Messiah. Just then there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, "What have you to do with this Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." We already read that one. This understanding of Jesus' identity came from supernatural knowledge, for at this time Jesus had not yet revealed himself to his disciples or to the world as the promised Messiah. But the person who was demonically possessed, they knew who he was. You see, because demons, they often have clairvoyance, or shall I say they always have clairvoyance. Another attribute they may have is new abilities. A person who is demon possessed acquires new abilities. For example, those possessed by demons can demonstrate superhuman strength. The Bible speaks of one demoniac in the following way, saying that he had often been restrained with shackles and chains, but the chains he wrenched apart, and the shackles he broke in pieces, and no one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains, he was always howling and bruising himself with stones. And that's Mark, the 5th chapter, the 4th and 5th verse. Now, let me say this about that. These possessed individuals will exhibit superhuman strength, but they also say the same thing about mentally ill people. I'm sure you've heard that they say a crazy person has the strength of 10 men. Now, so I have to ask myself, is that a crazy person or someone who's possessed? The next thing they may have is suicidal tendencies. Demon possession can lead to suicidal tendencies. The Bible says of one person who was demon possessed, they say it has often cast him into the fire and into the water to destroy him. But if you are able to do anything, have pity on us and help us. That's Mark 9th chapter, 22nd verse. It seems that demons want to physically destroy the human they possess. Yes, they absolutely do. What does the Bible tell you that the devil does? Comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And demons hate humans because we are of the Most High, for we were created by the Most High, and so they hate us. And so, of course, they want to destroy you. And that's why many people are tormented by these demons and often end up taking their own lives. Now, the New Testament tells us some of the signs of demon possession. The demons are able to speak through their victims. They can demonstrate new abilities, show different personalities, and exhibit suicidal tendencies. The main thing is to understand is that demon-possessed people are controlled by this demonic presence. Though the symptoms may look like mere psychological dysfunction, in all actuality, the problem is demon possession. And so with that all being said, like they also, have said previous, that these malevolent spirits can take over people and control their movements and actions for a while, but they can't permanently do it. People have free will, and we have power and dominion over demons. But some people sadly succumb to them, not realizing their own power. Also, people who tend to use and abuse drugs and alcohol, the demons can control them a whole lot better because these people are not in their right mind in the first place. Because when you're under the influence of drugs and alcohol specifically, right, or drugs and alcohol, that makes it easier for the demon to gain control. And when you think about it, alcohol is called spirits, and I told you all that before, and spirits brings on demons. Okay, so historically, many cases of demonic possession have masked major psychiatric disorder. And so the aim is to increase awareness that symptoms of schizophrenia are sometimes classified as demonic possession by priests. So you see, there is confusion sometimes with whether it's the demons or just pure mental illness. So this case report describes a single 28-year-old woman who attended sessions of exorcism and spiritualism, as she said she felt the presence of an evil spirit. Now, the patient had schizophrenia and at the time was receiving treatment at a first episode psychosis unit after a psychotic episode a year before. She had attended daily mass during the previous 6 months. The patient displayed partial insight, saying that half of her symptoms were due to the mental disorder and the other half were due to the presence of a spiritual being. At this point, her only desire was to remove all of her symptoms. Now, some months later, the patient contacted a clergyman via a website. The clergyman was a renowned expert on exorcisms and a frequent guest on TV programs on paranormal phenomena. During this period, the patient received a total of 8 sessions of exorcism and described deeper sleep and feeling more restful. Family members began to express distrust about the exorcisms because the patient shouted, writhed, and occasionally vomited during the sessions. As a result, they contacted therapists in the unit for an opinion on meetings with the priest. They say, we were very concerned about the patient's situation and also disappointed with the cleric's reaction. And so apparently the family didn't think it was demonic possession. They actually thought it was mental illness. Now, given the unusual course of events and the fact that the patient's mood had been markedly depressed since her parents and the unit had forbidden her to visit priests, they say we contacted an official institution in an effort to convince the patient that her symptoms were due to a mental disorder and not demonic possession, and to improve her insight into the mental disorder. We had previously explained the psychiatric diagnosis to the clergyman. Also, we started antidepressant treatment with sertraline. Now, when she was 22 years old, the patient had began to hear voices during a trip to the Canary Islands. The patient reported feeling that she was on one occasion, someone or something. She reported feeling that on one occasion, someone or something invisible pushed her down the stairs. She stated, the spirit got inside, graped me more than once. I started to feel a presence that made me squirm in bed, vomiting and feeling sick, etc. These behaviors led to her first psychiatric admission, following which she remained in the hospital on a voluntary basis, describing a pattern of kinesthetic hallucinations and delusional interpretations. Her diagnosis at discharge was paranoid schizophrenia, treated with a myriad of prescription drugs such as risperidone and alprazolam, among others. She suffered another attack 1 month later, and a year and a half later, the patient was admitted for a third time to the acute unit after jumping from a railing in an airport in response to instructions from auditory hallucinations. During this period, the patient was treated with clozapine, alprazolam, and lormetazepam. So she tried to kill herself. She said voices were telling her to do this. She was hearing auditory voices. On examination, no particular psychomotor disturbance was evident, and facial expressiveness was preserved. The patient displayed emphatic contact with mood reactivity. A significant interest in esotericism was highlighted. Kinesthetic hallucinations were described as an agent which entered and left her body, twisting her stomach. The patient denied having auditory hallucinations, although she stated they had occurred in the past. She displayed apathy and Ahmadiyyah and social withdrawal with a poor social life inside the family environment. The patient appeared to have partial insight as she criticized past experiences and took medications correctly, but believed there was a spiritual presence within her body. Now, the patient had persistent kinesthetic hallucinations despite receiving pharmacological treatment with high doses of risperidone and previous treatment with clozapine, olanzapine, and ziprasidone and psychotherapy. Now, they say we report the case of a woman diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but with a good prognosis, as she had good premorbid adjustments and has a few negative symptoms and predominantly affective symptoms. So the peculiarity of this case rests not only in psychotic symptoms refractory to medication, but also in the partial insight of the patient into her mental disorder. During the past 5 years, the patient received high doses of risperidone, clozapine, and risperidone depot without a complete response in her positive symptoms. The patient believed that half of her symptoms were due to the mental disorder. Okay, I think I put that in there twice because I already said that. Now, the authors faced a dilemma as to how to approach treatment. In such cases, good communication with priests is recommended. But we are surprised that in the 21st century in Europe, there are still experts and clerics who believe that some types of schizophrenia are due to demonic possession. Our intention was to ask an expert cleric from the Madrid Archdiocese to try to convince the patient that her symptoms were due to a mental disorder. And so in an effort to improve her, this was in an effort to improve her insight. To our surprise, clerics assumed that the patient's psychotic symptoms were in fact due to a malign presence. So they thought she was possessed. Another important point to discuss is that the results from the Million Clinical Multitaxal Inventory showed high scores of histrionic personality disorder and the narcissistic personality disorder in this patient. Now, we therefore consider that the predominance of the cluster B personality traits may explain the improvement in pharmacologically refractory symptoms through exorcism. So they say myself and other scholars, this is what I said. Myself and other scholars conclude that religious professionals should encourage appropriate psychiatric treatments and increase their knowledge of mental illnesses. Now, the peculiarity of this case is that the patient attributed her symptoms to a malignant spiritual experience, presenting little awareness of that extant disease. Also, the patient was led to believe that her psychotic symptoms were due to an evil presence by priests from the Madrid Archdiocese in Spain. She underwent multiple exorcisms, which disrupted clinical treatment response, and the patient had persistent kinesthetic hallucinations despite receiving pharmacological treatment and psychotherapy. Now, let me say this. Hold on. Let me stop the share for a moment, because I hope you all are not confused. I know it's a lot of medical jargon and whatnot. Okay, now, so with that all being said, you can see how it's very confusing for some people, because on the one hand, you have the psychologists and psychiatrists who more often than not absolutely think that it's mental illness, likely schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or some form of mental illness where they experience delusions or hallucinations. In her case, kinesthetic hallucinations. But then when they brought in the clergy, they said that they felt it was, some sort of spirit, okay, a malevolent spirit. So you can see how it's very confusing. Queen taught me the difference between sociopaths and psychopaths, says New Black Messiah. Thank you, beloved. Okay, now someone said pharmacy for the Greek word pharmakia means sorcery. Yes, absolutely, Jacob. And I've told you all that before. And so pay attention, because speaking of that, when you hear these different pharmaceuticals that they advertise on TV, and they have all these nefarious side effects that they talk about. I was watching TV just the other day, and they had some new medication. I don't remember the name of it, but when I heard the symptoms, I was thinking, honey, who wants to take that? They said side effects may include drowsiness, loss of weight, loss of appetite, strokes, heart attack. All kinds of crazy stuff. Like, so you're really going to risk your life, risk having a heart attack or stroke? You know what I'm saying? If it gets rid of one symptom and causes you all these others, like, what's the point? But yes, it absolutely does mean sorcery, right? Oh, so crazy. And do you all remember that I showed you all months ago, probably last year sometime, I actually showed you all a video that I had shared on Instagram of a woman who was supposed to be possessed by a demon, and there was a priest trying to get it out of her, trying to exorcise it from her, and she kept saying, the demon was speaking through the woman apparently, and it kept saying something about the medicine. Do y'all remember that? It kept saying something about the medicine. I can't remember if it was telling them to give her the medicine or something like that. But I thought that was very strange, and that's when I first told you all about the pharmaceutical. And how it means in Greek, it means sorcery. All medicine is man-mixed. All medicine comes from nature. Just seek the natural cures yourself, says New Black Messiah. So is that why the right In right, it's spelled R-I-T-E. Yes, King Michael X. That's a good question. Yes, it absolutely is, beloved. It absolutely is. There's lots of imagery when you look at the names of these pharmaceutical companies. There's one of them, and I believe it may also be Rite Aid, where they have it's like a bowl, like a mixing bowl with herbs in it, and it's got like a little wooden stick in it, right? Baby boy said addicted demons. Okay, so I'm going to start the share again. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Okay, so learning points to remember. Historically, there have been many cases of demonic possession, which masked major psychiatric disorder, which means people were confused. They didn't know which was which. Sometimes they thought it was demonic possession, but it was actually psychological or psychiatric disorders that the person had. Now, religious professionals should encourage appropriate psychiatric treatment and increase their knowledge of mental illness. Personality traits of the patient may explain the improvements of psychological refractory symptoms through exorcism. And I got this information, much of it from the National Library of Medicine, published in 2011, just so you know. Now, Dr. Richard Gallagher, he is a psychiatrist who has worked with priests to perform exorcisms. Now, I really like his work because he works in the scientific field. He's a doctor, a professor. You know, he's a psychiatrist, been a psychiatrist for years. But he, because of his expertise, some of the clergy came to get him to help determine whether these patients they were being sent to deal with for exorcisms, to determine whether they had mental illness or actually demonic entities. Okay, so in the late 1980s, Dr. Richard Gallagher is a psychiatrist who has worked with priests who perform exorcisms. In the late 1980s, he was introduced to a self-styled satanic high priestess. She called herself a witch and dressed the part with flowing dark clothes and black eyeshadow around her to her temples. In our many discussions, he says, she acknowledged worshiping Satan as his queen. Dr. Gallagher says he's a man of science and a lover of history. After studying the classics at Princeton, he trained in psychiatry at Yale and in psychoanalysis at Columbia. Now, that background is why a Catholic priest had asked his professional opinion which he offered pro bono about whether this woman was suffering from a mental disorder. This was at the height of the national panic about Satanism. Now, hold on. Okay, now in a case that helped induce the hysteria, Virginia McMartin and others had recently been charged with alleged satanic ritual abuse at a Los Angeles preschool. Now, for those of you that remember, I actually did a video on that. I covered that whole story. I may have to revisit it because I took it down. When I removed a bunch of my videos from YouTube, that's one of the videos that I took down. But this happened like in the 80s. And they were doing something called satanic ritual abuse, SRA. That's what they do to children and these cults and all these covens and things like that. Okay, so anyway, the charges were later dropped. So Dr. Gallagher was inclined to skepticism, but his subject's behavior exceeded what he could explain with his training. She could tell some people their secret weaknesses, such as undue pride. She knew how individuals she'd never known had died, including Dr. Gallagher's mother and her fatal case of ovarian cancer. Now, how could this woman know these things if she just had mental illness? And he was skeptical at first, but for her to know these things, that absolutely is reminiscent of what demonically possessed people would do, because remember, demons have clairvoyance. So 6 people later vouched to Dr. Gallagher that during her exorcisms, they heard her speaking multiple languages, including Latin, completely unfamiliar to her outside of her trances. This was not psychosis. It was what Gallagher could only describe as paranormal ability. He concluded that she was in fact possessed. Much later, she permitted him to tell her story. So the priest who had asked Gallagher's opinion of this bizarre case was the most experienced exorcist in the country at the time, an erudite and sensible man. Now, Gallagher told him, even as a practicing Catholic, he wasn't likely to go in for a lot of hocus pocus. Well, he replied, unless we thought you were not easily fooled, we would hardly have wanted you to assist us. Now, for the past 2.5 decades and over several hundred consultations, Gallagher has helped clergy from multiple denominations and faiths to filter episodes of mental illness, which represent the overwhelming majority of cases, from literally the devil's work. Okay, so you have to distinguish between the two, and that's why he's there to help. Now, it's an unlikely role for an academic physician, but he says, I don't see these two aspects of my career in conflict. The same habits that shape what he does as a professor and psychiatrist, open-mindedness, respect for evidence, and compassion for suffering people, led him to aid in the work of discerning attacks by what he believes are evil spirits, and just as critically, differentiating these extremely rare events from medical conditions. Now, it is possible to be a sophisticated psychiatrist, or is it possible to be a sophisticated psychiatrist and believe that evil spirits are, however, seldom assailing humans? Most of Gallagher's scientific colleagues and friends say no, because of their frequent contact with patients who are deluded about demons, their general skepticism of the supernatural as well, and their commitment to employ only standard peer-reviewed treatments that do not potentially mislead different risk or harm vulnerable patients. But careful observation of the evidence presented to me, this is what Gallagher says, in my career has led me to believe that certain extremely uncommon cases can be explained no other way. You know, so while most psychiatrists or psychologists would not believe that it's demonic things going on, because they believe in the science of what they have been taught and trained to work with. And so they will automatically assume that it's always mental illness, and they don't believe in this other stuff. They think that sounds crazy, some of them. Now, the Vatican does not attack global or countrywide exorcism, but in Gallagher's experience, and according to the priest he met, demand is rising. The United States is home to about 50 stable exorcists, those who have been designated by bishops to combat demonic activity or on a semi-regular basis, up from just 12 a decade ago, according to the Reverend Vincent Lampert, an Indianapolis-based priest exorcist who is active in the International Association of Exorcists. He receives about 20 inquiries per week, double the number of when his bishop appointed him in 2005. The Catholic Church has responded by offering greater resources for clergy members who wish to address the problem. Now, in 2010, for instance, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops organized a meeting in Baltimore for interested clergymen. And 2014, Pope Francis formally recognized the IAE 400 members. Members believe in such strange cases because they are constantly called upon to help. Dr. Gallagher served for a time as a scientific advisor on the group's governing board. Unfortunately, not all clergy involved in this complex field are as cautious as the priest who first approached him. This is what Gallagher says. Now, in some circles, there is a tendency to become overly preoccupied with putative demonic explanations and to see the devil everywhere. Fundamentalist misdiagnosis and absurd or even dangerous treatments, such as beating victims, have sometimes occurred, especially in developing countries. This is perhaps why exorcism has a negative connotation in some quarters. People with psychological problems should receive psychological treatment. They say Gallagher has personally encountered these rationally inexplicable features along with other paranormal phenomena. He says his vantage is unusual. As a consulting doctor, he thinks he's seen more cases of possession than any other physician in the world. Most of the people he evaluates in this role suffer from the more prosaic problems of a medical disorder. Anyone even faintly unfamiliar or familiar with mental illnesses knows that individuals who think they are being attacked by malign spirits are generally experiencing nothing of the sort. Practitioners see psychotic patients all the time who claim to see or hear demons. Histrionic or highly suggestible individuals, such as those suffering from dissociative identity syndromes and patients with personality disorders who are prone to misinterpret destructive feelings in what exorcists sometimes call a pseudo-possession via the defense mechanism of an externalizing projection. But Gallagher asked, what is he supposed to make of patients who unexpectedly start speaking perfect Latin? I'm sorry, if they just out of the blue start speaking perfect Latin fluently, start speaking Aramaic, Arabic, and Hebrew, and they've never studied it before, I absolutely think that's a demon. Because those are the languages that demons will speak. Specifically Latin, more so. Now he approaches each situation with an initial skepticism. He says that technically he doesn't make his own diagnosis of possession, but inform the clergy that the symptoms in question have no conceivable medical cause. Dr. Gallagher says he's aware of the way many psychiatrists view this sort of work. While the American Psychiatric Association has no official opinion on these affairs, the field, like society at large, is full of unpersuadable skeptics and occasionally doctrinaire materialists who are often oddly vitriolic in their opposition to all things spiritual. His job is to assist people seeking help, not to convince doctors who are not subject to persuasion. Yet Gallagher's been pleasantly surprised by the number of psychiatrists and other medical health practitioners nowadays who are open to entertaining such hypotheses. Many believe exactly what I do, though they may be reluctant to speak out, he says. As a man of reason, Gallagher's had to rationalize the seemingly irrational questions about how a scientifically trained physician can believe such outdated and unscientific nonsense as he's been asked, have a simple answer. He says he honestly weighs the evidence. Dr. Gallagher says he's been told simplistically that levitation defies the laws of gravity. And well, of course it does. We're not dealing here with purely material reality, but with the spiritual realm. One cannot force these creatures to undergo lab studies or submit to scientific manipulation. They will also hardly allow themselves to be easily recorded by video equipment, as skeptics sometimes demand. The official Catholic catechism holds that demons are sentient and possess their own wills. As they are fallen angels, they are also craftier than humans. That's how they sow confusion and seed doubt, after all. Nor does the church wish to compromise a sufferer's privacy any more than doctors want to compromise a patient's confidentiality. Ignorance and superstition have often surrounded stories of demonic possession in various cultures, and surely many alleged episodes can be explained by fraud, chicanery, or mental pathology. But anthropologists agree that nearly all cultures have believed in spirits, and the vast majority of societies, including our own, have recorded dramatic stories of spirit possession, despite varying interpretations. Multiple depictions of the same phenomena in astonishingly consistent ways offer cumulative evidence of their credibility. Basically saying they have documented proof that these things absolutely occur. Now, as a psychoanalyst, a blanket rejection of the possibility of demonic attacks seems less logical and often wishful in nature than a careful appraisal of the facts. As Gallagher sees it, the evidence for possession is like the evidence of George Washington's crossing the Delaware. In both cases, written historical accounts with numerous sound witnesses testify to their accuracy. In the end, however, it was not an academic or dogmatic view that propelled Gallagher into this line of work. He was asked to consult about people in pain. He's always thought that if requested to help a tortured person, a physician should not arbitrarily refuse to get involved. Those who dismiss these cases unwittingly prevent patients from receiving the help they desperately require, either by failing to recommend them to a psychiatry or recommend them for psychiatric treatment, which most clearly need, or by not informing their spiritual ministers that something beyond a mental or other illness seems to be the issue. For any person of science or faith, it should be impossible to turn one's back on a tormented soul. Okay, so that was a lot. Asha Mwamba says, in my opinion, all these nefarious behaviors stemming from the venom, it makes it difficult to determine mental illness, demonic possession, or governmental mind control of some individuals. I can absolutely agree. Mr. Hotel said, this was amazing, Queen. Thank you, beloved. But it's not done yet. Now let's get to some footage. Let's get to some footage of the nefariousness of it all. Now I'm going to show you a video of a man who was suffering from mental illness, and he was left on the side of the road by the police. It's also shameful. This country does not have any empathy and sympathy for those who have mental illness. They just really don't. That's just my opinion. Everyone, please like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell, click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen goes live. Thank you.
Videos are increasingly being used in court and civil suits against law enforcement and first responders, including the case Jim Axelrod is about to show you in tonight's Eye on America. And a warning, some of what you are about to see is graphic.
It's been a year of crippling emotion for Cindy and Paul Tarashuk. A year since the death of their 26-year-old son, also named Paul.
Still not easy to talk about, is it?
No, it's talking about him gets me really upset. Talking about this stuff gets me angry.
Paul Tarashuk had schizoaffective disorder, suffering delusions and hallucinations. But he was getting on with his life until one night last September.
I'm going to fast forward some of this.
Law enforcement agencies responded, including Orangeburg County Sheriff's Deputy Clifford Dorowski.
Oh, he's under the influence. Nobody can see that.
Who was certain Tarashuk was high or drunk.
They just want to check your vitals.
Dorowski's body camera recorded what happened when EMS arrived.
You speak English? Hey.
Tarashuk didn't answer the first responders, who were berating and cursing at him.
I'm being serious. I'm sleepy. Give me a damn name so I can go home, for real. I'm tired.
So they shoved an ammonia capsule up his nose.
Breathe that in.
He didn't flinch.
So there, I mean, at that point, someone should have stepped up and says, we got to take him in someplace. He's not just someone to let go.
Do you want to go to the hospital? Yes or no? Do you want to go to jail? Well, those are your two choices.
Come on, I'm going to give you a ride.
As troubling as it is to watch how the ambulance crew treats Paul Tarashuk during the call, it's even more disturbing to watch the sheriff's deputy after.
You're not going to jail. You're not under arrest. I'm going to give you a ride. I'll give you a ride to a safe environment. That's all I want. I want to make sure you're all right.
The deputy puts Tarashuk into his cruiser, drives him 15 miles to this gas station near the county line, a gas station that was closed at the time.
This is the last time Paul Tarashuk is seen alive. No shoes, no phone, no idea where he is.
It's just watching him walk to his death. He was escorted by an officer to his death.
I think I just hit a person on the interstate.
Nearly 5 hours later, the same EMS crew was called to deal with Tarashuk again, back on the same highway. This time, he was dead. A toxicology report from the Orangeburg County Coroner's Office came up clean. No drugs, no alcohol. Despite this, Deputy Clifford Dorowski is still on the job at the Orangeburg County Sheriff's Department, and so is one of the EMTs, State Senator Katrina Shealy.
Has there been, in your view, enough accountability?
I think there needs to be a better investigation into what happened. I mean, we can see it on the video. I think somebody, needs to explain to them why it happened, which they haven't. I mean, you can't explain it away.
We asked EMS and the Sheriff's Department for on-camera interviews. They both declined, citing an ongoing investigation.
They didn't do their job. That's it. They just didn't do their job. They didn't care enough about human life to do their job.
Jim Axelrod joins us tonight. So, Jim, what recourse do the parents have?
Well, they filed both state and federal lawsuits today. I spoke to the family's lawyer just a short while ago. He says, sure, they're looking for justice. They're looking for accountability. They're looking for answers. They're also looking for a significant monetary award to get the attention of lawmakers in South Carolina to change things and ensure no other family will have to go through something like this.
Yeah, so
that is just so disgusting how they did that poor man. And they were talking to him so crazy, berating him, and just automatically assumed that he was high on drugs. Now, my thing is that the police weren't going to take him home or to a safe place. They dropped him off at a gas station that was closed in the middle of the night. Why didn't they just let the EMTs take him to the hospital? That way he could have gotten evaluated medically or whatever. And then likely when he came to, they could have just called somebody to come and get him. Like, this is all so sad. Like, that man did not deserve that. And this is what they do. They don't care about the mentally ill. So now let's watch this video, because this is a clip of someone who is, this made the news. Clip of someone who's possessed by demons. Pay attention. It's also nefarious. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Everyone, please get the likes up. Please like and share.
Smartphone sold on back market by expert refurbishers. Wait, give me a...
The idea of the devil.
No! Leave now, I command you.
And in real life, this rare footage shows what actually happens in an exorcism.
Oh, don't let her go.
Stop it! Get her off me!
I would do things that I wouldn't necessarily do, but so intense that it was like I was almost a puppet.
Becky Parker is her name. She was possessed by demons, she firmly believes, and she has been saved, she affirms, by the love of God through the rite of exorcism.
I'm happy because I found God. I found how to win the spiritual battle I was in.
Tell me your name in the name of Jesus Christ.
A spiritual battle. That's what the experience of exorcism feels like to those who go through it.
Speak the truth. Speak the truth.
And those who perform it.
I do it because I think it's an incredibly profound opportunity to help in the healing ministry that this is fundamentally about. And in a ministry where people are suffering tremendously.
Father Gary Thomas is an exorcist, though he did not perform Becky Parker's exorcism. That priest preferred to remain anonymous.
This is Jesus.
But Father Gary was trained in Rome, and for the past several years, he's been the official exorcist of the Diocese of San Jose, California.
Father, is the devil real? I do believe the devil is real. I've had occurrences and experiences in my life where I believe I've seen the devil. I've seen demons, but you don't see Satan in the same way that you and I are looking at each other.
There's plenty of evil in the world. God knoweth that, you might say. Plenty of cruelty, mayhem, and murder. But the devil?
Satan is a pure spirit. He's an angel who fell. Certainly when I've been involved in the ministry of exorcism and at times prayed with people who have had a demonic attachment, I have seen Satan.
I have never met a psychiatrist that came to the conclusion the person was possessed by a demon.
Daryl Ray speaks for the other side, the secular take on these matters, as a psychologist and atheist who thinks exorcism is not just a fantasy, but a dangerous one.
We're diagnosing diseases now with brain scans that we couldn't diagnose even 2 and 3 years ago. What will happen in 4 or 5 years? The brain is an incredibly complicated organ. But the fact that some priest using 12th century technology can cure somebody is absurd.
Faith versus doubt, the sacred versus the profane.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there. So I want you to pay attention. Notice those people are easy taken over by demons. Listen, I want you all to pay attention. So Judah Queen says Caesar Borgia. Here's the thing. That psychiatrist was saying that he doesn't believe in that. He's never seen a psychologist, say that someone's demonically possessed. Well, of course they would. Of course they would. Most of them only follow the science. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's what they were taught and trained to do. But people who are religious and who know about the spiritual realm and spiritual warfare and know of these things and who know that they even speak of these things in the Bible. So if you believe the Bible, well, it clearly talks about demonic possession. So with that all been said, no, everyone's not going to believe that. Some of you aren't going to believe it. I absolutely do. I've seen demons. I've seen people who are possessed by demons. I've heard them talk in different voices. Okay, speak fluent Latin. Fluent Latin. Now, though this person did also speak fluent Spanish, but this person was actually speaking Latin, a language they never ever studied. Okay, they never studied this language before in their lives. Okay, and they were doing all sorts of crazy things. At one point, they were in a catatonic state. They actually, when visited in the hospital, they actually had an aversion to holy things, just as a demonically possessed person would. They didn't want the Bible near them. When they were asked to say the Lord's Prayer, they could not say it. Something was preventing them. It was demons. And also they spoke in a different voice, in a man's voice, and this was a female. Another thing is someone came into the hospital room with a Bible and started trying to read the Bible to them. And this person took 2 fingers. Now, this was a man that came into the hospital room with a Bible trying to read it to them. And they took their 2 fingers, their forefinger and their middle finger, and they pulled the Bible almost out of his hands with 2 fingers. This is a female. Okay, so there's a whole lot of weird stuff going on. And this is all stuff, that absolutely has occurred. So you can call it mental illness or whatever, but to me, it was demonic possession. Another thing is you have to be careful around these types of people because those demons can jump from one person to another as far as I'm concerned. Because clearly the guy who came in there with the Bible trying to read to this person, well, his wife told me that night when they got home, he was in like a catatonic state. He was just standing there completely still and staring. And she kept calling his name and he would not answer. And she said, "Are you in there? Are you in there?" Because she knew it was the demon standing right there. The demon had attached itself to him from going to the hospital to visit the other person who was possessed by the demon. Another thing is the hospital staff. They knew that this person was demonically possessed. You know how I knew that they knew this? I'm so glad you asked. Because they actually called a nun to come in. Okay, when these things happen, they'll call in a chaplain, they want the priest to come in or a nun. They're trying to get someone holy. And the nun came in. And here's the part that you should pay attention to. This person was strapped down in the hospital bed, strapped down, ankles and hands. They broke free from those straps when the nun entered the room. They were laying flat on their back with their eyes shut. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. They were laying on their back with their eyes shut. As soon as the nun walked into the room and stood next to their bed, they sat straight up, broke the restraints, opened their eyes, and turned to look straight at that nun. Now, that should let you know that they knew the nun was there, even without even seeing the nun, because their eyes were closed. Now, make that make sense. Also crazy and clearly nefarious, like I said. But hold on. Now, listen to this. This is a story, just a quick story about a man who shot his son. And he called 911. And this is what he said when he called. He said, "I shot my demon-possessed son who tried to burn down my house." And you see, when I was talking about that 15-year-old this morning that tore up his mother's house and all that, I absolutely think that was the work of demons. Yes, he's entitled and spoiled, but I also think that he's done something that has allowed demons to enter into his environment and influence his actions. Because that's just not a normal level of rage. That reeks of demons as far as I'm concerned. So now this guy calls in. This happened in Charlotte, North Carolina. A father told a 911 dispatcher that he shot his son in their home. He said, "It was either me or him, and I'm going to protect myself. I'm tired of it." That's what the 78-year-old man said. Now, Gaston County Police said that Ralph Gregory Wilson was shot by his dad on Freedom Mill Road. When asked why he shot his son, Police say he told them that his boy tried to set the home on fire. The 911 calls paint a vivid scene, and it sounds like the Wilson family has been dealing with problems with their 52-year-old son for years. So the caller said, I got a bipolar boy, and he was trying to set my house on fire. Last night, he was doing it again. He came at me, and I shot him. So from the beginning, the caller did explain to the dispatcher that he was trying to defend himself. The dispatcher says, who is it that you shot? He says, my boy. Dispatcher says, was it your son? He says, yes. I got up, I seen alcohol and some other fluid. I said, that's what you going to do? He talks this crazy stuff about demons. He's demon possessed. Now, Ralph Gregory Wilson was arrested in Gaston County and has a mugshot from the arrest. Police say he was taken to the hospital and hadn't been charged. His father explained that Wilson threatened to burn down the home on Freedom Mill Road and poured liquid lighter fluid all over the couch. So the caller said, I shot the wall at first just to warn him. He came at me. It was either me or him, and I had to protect myself. Wilson had explained that his son, he explained to the dispatcher that his son had psychological problems and was running from the house. A neighbor 2 doors down also called 911 because she was scared. The second person that called said, he just said, Daddy shot me. Daddy shot me. Please take me to the hospital. And then a moaning is heard in the back at Wilson's parents' home. The dispatcher asked, is he back in the house? The caller says, I'm inside now, but he's out there on the porch. Wilson asked his parents to take him to the hospital, and his dad explains an ambulance is on the way. You shouldn't have shot him in the chest. That's what the woman in the home said. I didn't know I was shooting him in the chest. I tried to shoot him lower. The dispatcher says Gaston County police are also on the way. Caller says he's bleeding some, but he's out there waving like he's trying to wave at the law, but they ain't coming. The dispatcher then tells the dad to put down his gun once he sees the police. So the caller says they're coming now. I'm going to lay it down. Now the shooter's brother says his nephew is still in the hospital. Caramount Regional Medical Center would not say if Wilson was being treated there. Wilson's uncle said what happened was self-defense. He said he's glad that the house didn't get burned down. Gaston County Police say they are presenting the case to the district attorney to decide if anyone in the family will face charges. That old man shouldn't face charges because clearly this man was nefarious. And I don't know if this is the man or the son. I think this is the 52-year-old. I'm going to share my screen so you all can see a picture of him. I mean, he clearly had some type of psychological issues, honey, talking about burning down the house, right? People's homes have demons too. Be careful where you go. This is absolutely true, Jacob. Absolutely true. And that's why, I don't just let anybody come to my home, honey. I absolutely do not. And when people come to make repairs and things like that, I burn some sage before and after they leave. Okay. And then I open a window. So if they brought in any negative energy, it can be dispelled. Anything is possible with possession or demonic spirits. Absolutely, Terry. Absolutely. So with that all being said, someone said, why didn't the officer just take him to the hospital? Exactly. You mean the guy that they left on the side of the road? Yes. I mean, that would have been the logical thing to do. But, they don't care about the mentally ill. They just don't. That's why they didn't do it. They just left that man on the side of the road, knowing that he wasn't in his right mind. But, of course, they thought he was on drugs. So forget him is what they probably thought. Also sad. So everyone, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in once again. Please be sure to like and share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. All right. And I hope to see you all in the chat in the morning for your morning wake-up call and for Friday trivia. So make sure you got your fingers ready. Okay. And remember, no answers in the chat. All answers sent to the email. Okay. So with that all being said, I wish you all love, peace, and prosperity. You're all welcome. Thank you all for tuning in. And also make sure that you do something productive, constructive, never destructive. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Make sure you share this video. Okay, y'all know they have the Queen Shadow Band. And also don't forget to keep the Most High first in your lives, beloveds. And until next time, I will talk to you all again soon.
We have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put 2 dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Tamir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coon. The white man to go nuts if he cash you. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Ahmadiyyah.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations, I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
I'm getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of